Nice. So my pet deck just took 2 YCSs by storm. So now that it's the best deck, I'm just going to leak all the secrets. I've been seeing a lot of videos on the best ways to beat Unchained, but none of these people have actually played Unchained and have had the unfortunate experience of playing against a lot of these cards. So I'm going to go back and recount all of my experiences and the horrible memories that go alongside them to go ahead and tell you what are all the best and worst cards. Overrated, underrated, yada, yada, yada. Let's go ahead and get on into it. Before we talk about techs, let's go ahead and learn a little bit about the deck that you need to be playing.
Tech Deck, the only company to...
Dragon Link is my first choice for 3 reasons. For one, the Unchained engine can't actually out a Borland without non-engine. You need to go into Underworld Goddess of the Closed World to take a Borland off the field. You're going to see a theme about non-destruction removal. Starting off with Heradic Dragon Spheres thingy, we'll just call it Spheres. It's a non-targeting bounce, which is already a very strong interaction against Unchained, alongside the fact that D-Link runs a heavier Bestial engine, and we'll talk about later down the line why that is a very big problem. Second off the line, the most annoying matchup, when it doesn't lose to itself, is Fluanderees. Specifically, the reason is they all normal summon their monsters, and there are a lot of things in Unchained that specify special summoned monster. Soul of Rage, Nightmare Griffin, Wave High King Caesar, all those cards don't do anything. So in game 1, Fluanderees basically has an auto win as long as they go normal summon Rabina. The game's over. In my opinion, my most impossible matchup as Unchained is Branded Chimera. I feel like I have like a 20% win rate against this deck. The reason being, for one, is Rinbrum the Striking Dragon. This card is literally an anti-Unchained card. Negate any extra deck monster and bounce, non-targeting, and then summon a Fallen of Albaz during your opponent's turn, which is then going to make the second biggest problem about this deck. It's called Mirror Jade. This card is impossible to deal with. Once again, non-targeting, non-destruction removal, a big theme that Unchained has big problems against. Lastly, a 50-50 matchup with Unchained is Pearly, specifically because Stray Pearly Street is actually such a strong card against Unchained, turning off a lot of the interaction. But with Unchained, if they go for the Nightmare Griffin boards, Pearly has a much more difficult time dealing with those, especially with the Big Knot engine, with lots of Book of Moons, etc. in the format. Non-destruction removal. Alrighty, we're done with decks, but now here are the cards that you can slap in said decks. First things first, I want to bring to you all a disclaimer. Unchained doesn't lose to anything in particular. Except this card. Hey guys, this card's called Gravekeeper's Inscription. This card is like really unfair. It reads, at the start of your main phase 1, apply one of the following effects until the end of your opponent's turn. Neither player can activate card effects in the graveyard. Neither player can banish cards from the graveyard. Neither player can special summon monsters from the graveyard. This lasts 2 turns. Let me get this straight. This card was good against Ishizu Tearlaments, the best deck ever created. Yeah, it's gonna be good against like Tearlaments at home, which is Unchained. Yeah, playing against this card is actually just impossible. And not only that, you can activate this card going second as well to stun your Unchained opponent out of the game. So coming in from the side deck, this card is just a complete blowout. It can answer boards, it can contest boards, and it can just stop your opponent from playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And not only that, this card is also just a multi-purpose threat. For the reason that against Dragon Link, you can call the effect that neither player can banish cards from the graveyard, and poof, half the deck has just been invalidated. And if you haven't gotten this mantra already, Abyss Dweller is pretty good against this deck. Please don't make this against me. Okay, so a more conventional way to attack Unchained is Bestials. We talked about them a little bit in the Dragon Link segment, and here's why. You might think to yourself, but Unchained doesn't actually care about getting cards banished from their graveyard. Losing Yama is like whatever. And you're right, it is whatever. What's not whatever is the Bestial Druisworm being summoned to my opponent's field and being impossible to get rid of. Would you still love me if I was a worm? Specifically, if your opponent is going second and drops a Bestial Druisworm on the board, that card will single-handedly deal with the entire Unchained board. And I know MBT has mentioned that you can go cool line with going
From
Anguish
into access code to lock the chain and prevent it from resolving.
But that just sounds really bad if you're going first and have to answer that. Access code is not an interruption, guys! So Unchained needs to go into a Nightmare Unicorn to get rid of it. And at that point, you're going so far minus that Druisworm has already done its job. Oh, it's absolutely wild that a funny little main deck dragon is actually just an Avengers level threat. Alrighty, we've gotten to the midpoint of this video, so here's a short list of cards that I think are pretty overrated against Unchained. Evenly matched for the fact that you can just chain Escape of the Unchained to go ahead and pop most of your field, float into some new stuff, dodge the evenly matched, and proceed to main phase 2, still having a complete board. We got Dark Ruler No More for a similar fact that you can summon back most of the things that have their effects negated. And effect negation hand traps. These cards don't actually stop full combo. You can imperm the tour guide and pray that they don't have a Shavara in hand. And lastly, I think this card has kind of shown up as to be the Unchained beater, but it really is. Nibiru the Primal Being is not the game-ending hand trap most people think. Let's not get this wrong. Nibiru is good. It's good against Unchained. Unchained has to play around it. If Unchained just goes pew into the wall, Nibiru will wreck them. But with current combo lines being developed right now, Unchained players have found consistent ways to beat Nibiru the Primal Being. So most of the time when an Unchained player gets nibbed, they just go ahead and Griffin lock you for fun with a Muckraker on board to stop it from being destroyed by battle. It's a really powerful combo. But don't get me wrong, Nibiru combined with other hand traps is exceptionally strong. So, go ahead and keep it in your list if you feel like it. And not to forget that Nibiru is the best going first card in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! So play at your own risk. I'm about to drop some weird things on your head. A conundrum, perhaps. Board pipes are actually not that bad against Unchained. And you might be thinking, but Garrett 5, but the whole board just floats into a new one. I agree. That is correct. But at the same time, Unchained can only reborn one monster. If you're able to out the wave High King Caesar and force out the Yama at the same time, it creates a very awkward game state where you actually traded very efficiently into the Unchained board. Personally, it's better than what an Imperm could do. Of course, if Unchained has a perfect board, not everything's gonna beat it. There isn't a cure-all for Unchained, but Dark Hole is an interesting shout. Hey guys, welcome to the top 3 things from 2002. Number 1, Dark Hole. For some more hand traps that actually work, no Skullmeister, not you, I think DD Crow is a much better option. Here's why. There are some very limited resources that the Unchained deck has on offer. Specifically, Unchained Soul of Shyama is a massive resource for the Unchained deck, and most decks play it at 1. I have nightmares of getting my Shyama crowed during my own turn, and that will not only ruin my combo, but impact me for the rest of the game. Alongside that, Crow has other uses, specifically against decks like Pearly, Branded, sometimes Dragon Link, God forbid Tearlaments. But you get the deal. We want a versatile hand trap that also hits Unchained pretty hard, and DD Crow kind of fits that bill. So I know you all have your own ideas, including one of the funniest texts to ever grace a YCS. Yeah, read this card yourself. But these were some of the more unknown texts that you can play against Unchained. I didn't want to mention the obvious cards that are good against Unchained, but if you guys are lazy and didn't really care for any of the text in this video, just play Triple Tactics Talents in your deck and pray. Call it a day. Win your locals someday. I don't know. Anyways, with that, good luck beating me at a future locals or wherever you guys are. Peace!